Hey guys, it's Merlini doing the playoff predictions for the TI4 Compendium. The wild card tournament prediction closes in about 18 hours. Everything else is a little over 40. So for the wild card tournament, these teams are actually pretty evenly matched. My gut says either Liquid or VP. Liquid is matched for CIS, and VP is matched for MVP. So you can use that into your predictions. I think I'm going to go with Liquid. I think they have the most skill and they're the most consistent of the four teams. Again, runner up is VP. I think they're probably the most inconsistent, but also probably have the highest level of individual talent. So moving on to the playoffs predictions. This should be for the round robin format, and a minimum of 120 games leads me to believe that there will be tiebreakers. In the case that there are tiebreakers, they're not going to settle it by time score or head to head. Maybe I'm not exactly sure, but tiebreakers will probably happen, especially since each set of places is different. First and second is different from third and fourth, is different from fifth and sixth, etc. So they need to settle all these out. And originally I thought 11th through 16th was going to be the same, but I don't actually think that's going to be true either, because 15th and 16th don't get any prize money. So they need to differentiate between 10 through 14 or 11 through 14th and 15 to 16 too. So estimate maybe, like, I don't know, 130-ish games, so take that into account too. Most pick hero, Mirana. This one's pretty much a no-brainer. Also, before I go into this, I use a couple of resources. Firstly, 2p.com's article, Join Dota's article, and of course I almost always use datdota.com's articles for these, and these will be posted in the video description if you're interested in looking at that yourself. So again, I present to you my own data. Try to use your own knowledge to get the most points as possible. So first one, most pick hero, Mirana. This one's kind of a no-brainer. Mirana is just picked so high in 6.81. Most banned hero, probably Lycan. These teams probably not exactly. Lycan's almost always going to be banned by the Radiant team, so I would say that it's pretty good. Heroes never picked or banned. Generally, it's in between like 10 to 21, depending on what you think it's going to be. I think in the round robin format, people still aren't going to reveal everything, and they're going to tend to play more conservatively. So I would lean towards the upper end of 10 to 21. So I'll just go with 16 or 18. Seems like a reasonable number. But again, there's probably going to be tiebreakers, which means this number might be a little bit lower, which is why I'm sticking to this one. Heroes with the most average kills. These are really awkward questions, because generally heroes that are picked the least will probably have the highest average, because they have the highest variance when they're picked the least. So you have to think a hero that's actually going to be picked, and then is going to get a lot of kills, and then is not going to be picked probably for the rest of the event. So this one's really tough. There's probably, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 maybe even more good heroes. Like Spectre's pretty good. Morphling probably picked a little bit too often. Queen of Pain might make a resurgence, or might be just be picked once by like IG again. Who knows? Shadow Fiend, EG may bust out a Shadow Fiend, and RTZ might go crazy. Bloodseeker, Mason likes to play this hero too. So these are all pretty good choices too. PA Clinks, Ursa. There's some notable mentions. I'm just gonna go with Sven. You also have to think of it as like a team that's actually good is going to play it too, because if they don't win, they're not going to get that many kills. So I'm leaning towards Sven. I would also probably think about Bloodseeker and Shadow Fiend are probably my runner-ups. Heroes with the most average deaths. So hero, again, that's not picked very often, is probably going to lose, or is put in a position that he's going to die a lot, not get picked again, and picked by weaker teams. This one is also extremely difficult. There's probably like 10 different ones that you could argue for, and they would all be pretty darn good. Huskar, if you think he's going to be picked, he has pretty high average deaths. Zeus is very easy to kill and not picked very often too, but he might not be picked throughout the whole event. I was actually thinking about putting him. Undying, I think, will actually be picked and will probably lose, because I think the hero's still pretty weak, and probably not get picked again. Meepo is actually not a bad choice too, because I don't actually think there's too many strong Meepo players going to this year's TI. and those are probably the ones most worth mentioning. Heroes with the most average last hits. This one's extremely difficult too. This one, I think there's a smaller range of heroes that you would choose than these other two. I think like Naga Siren, Anti-Mage, Lycan, Luna. These sort of heroes are pretty good. I think the other statisticians kind of threw out Naga Siren because she's used as a carry, but I don't actually think she's going to be played as a carry, or if she does, the times that she's played as a mid or a carry is going to balance it out just because she gets a ridiculous amounts of last hits, and the games actually tend to go pretty darn long too. So that's gonna be my pick for that one. Again, the ones that are pretty good: Tiny, Morphling, Luna, Anti-Mage, Shadow Fiend are the ones that are honorable mentions too. So consider those. Heroes with the most average assists, very similar to the most average deaths one. I think it's like a support position that might die a lot, but might be involved in a lot of team fights and not be picked a lot. Spectre, I think, is actually a pretty good pick. And the thing about Spectre is he gets a lots of assists, even when he wins or loses, and there's like very little variance in it. He gets high assists like every time he's played, so he's not a bad choice. I'm just gonna go with Undying though, just because I think he's gonna be picked not very often, die a lot, and get a lot of kills, or assists rather. So hero specific predictions, these are a little bit different than the average ones. These are the heroes with most first blood, so a hero that's going to be picked a lot or do a lot of this specific thing. Mirana gets picked a lot and she gets a lot of first bloods. This one's pretty much a no-brainer. Hero with the most tower damage. Lycan gets banned a lot, but he also gets picked a lot and he does a ton of damage to towers. I think it's either like Lycan or Tiny, probably going to be the top two, but I would say Lycan just because almost every team will play Lycan, whereas not every team will play Tiny Wisp. I don't really think there's that many that are even close to that in terms of being picked a lot. Heroes with the highest average GPM. Anti-Mage, I think, is pretty good. You want to pick a carry in this particular category, and the hero that's almost always going to get his farm before the game ends. This one I don't actually think is too important if the highest average GPM is too high, because I think each of these carries will be picked at least more than once, so they won't have too high variance. So as of right now, Anti-Mage, Shadow Fiend, Meepo, Morphling have the highest GPMs. Sniper is number 5, but I don't think anyone's going to pick Sniper. So again, I'd pick a hard carry: Luna, Naga, Morphling, SF, AM. I'm just going to go with AM here because there are players like Burning. Havos just played one in ESL that had a really high GPM too, so pretty informed decision, I think, at least better than some of the other ones. Hero with the lowest average GPM, I'm going to go with something that's actually picked a lot and dies a lot, and that is going to be the Wisp. He is actually like number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th in terms of most deaths on average this patch, but the first 5 are heroes that probably won't be picked at all: Necrophos, Huskar, Pudge, Spiritbreaker, or Zeus. Or if they do pick Pudge, it's going to be a really good Pudge, or so I'm going to nix all of those, and the other 4 choices are Undying, Meepo, Jakiro, and EO. Meepo probably not going to be picked, could be in the support position by some teams, unlikely. Undying is not a bad choice here, but I picked him for the other 2, so I'm going to try and hedge my bets. EO I know is at least going to be picked, so at least I'll have a number out for that, and he just doesn't get that much farm and tends to die a lot, and I even think the large sample size of him being picked a lot won't skew it that much, but kind of going out on a limb here on that one. Heroes with the most wins, Mirana. Hero with the most losses, Mirana. She's probably going to be picked the most. And these next 7 are pretty interesting too. How short would the shortest game be? Again, I think a lot of the sample sizes for Dota and the other sites were for 120-ish games. I think there'll be more like 130-ish games, so I might err on the side of, if there's more games, the shortest game will probably be a little bit shorter for 120 than 130. So let's see what we have for these. Lowest game, I don't think too many of these differ from that Dota though. Shortest game, 10-15 or 15-20. This one's really tough. Teams tend to stick it out a little bit longer during TI, but I think there's going to be large skill differences in between some teams like DK and the wild card winner. for example, and at the same time, there's the whole world's watching, so some of them want to save face by having the game as short as possible. Some want to save face by staying in as long as possible, but I think it'll differ enough that 10-15 is a pretty reasonable bet. How long will the longest game be? Again, teams tend to stick it out a little bit longer than normal because a lot is on the line here. I think they chose around 70 to 75. The longest game in TI3 was 75 to 80. I'm going to go with 75 to 80 because I think a lot of the teams are very evenly matched. And some of them like the farm. I would choose one of those two, though. When will the latest first blood occur? 10 to 12 minutes seems to be a pretty common choice. I don't really have data of my own to back it up. It seems like it's a clear winner in the TI data. 10 to 12, 12 to 14, or 8 to 10 are all pretty good, though. Again, the larger the sample size, the latest first blood will occur. So I'm going to go err on the side of higher, which is 10 to 12. When will the earliest Roshan occur? This one's a very tricky question because I believe there will be no crowd cheering for these. I think the VIP is going to be able to watch it, but they won't be actually like cheering for Roshan, and they won't hear casters, which is actually a pretty big deal. When I was at ESL, I could never talk about Roshan because the players would hear it, and they would hear Roshan bassing fools, and they would immediately know what's going on, and it would change the game. But if they're in a closed environment, they can't hear any casters, any of the crowd, then I think they will actually try and sneak Roshan in at least once. So I'm just going to go with before 0 minutes here, and every team will take every edge that they can get to win a game, especially with the ever so important group stage. How many kills will neutral creeps get? I always think that this answer is higher than statistics will say. Actually, my intuition says it's going to be higher than it actually says. That Dota goes with 11 or more. Nahaz goes with 11 or more too. I'm actually going to go with 7 to 8. I don't think there's that many junglers. They say that Enigma is fairly popular, which he is, but I don't think that there's going to be too many neutral deaths around him. There's not too many Chen and Enchantress battles anymore. And they also make the argument that Tidehunter is picked a lot and he neutrals a lot, which is actually not that bad too. But then again, some of the ancient junglers aren't picked that often too, like Luna or Gyro. So I'm going to go with the gut, 7 to 8. Times the age is stolen for the other team. I think I got this wrong with the EU qualifier predictions. It seems to err on the lower side, though. 0 to 2 to 3 to 4 is what that Dota predicted. 3 to 4, and Nahaz predicted 0 to 2. The data suggests 3 to 4 or 5 to 6 for non-TI. But I don't know. I just don't see Aegis snatches happen that often. It didn't happen too much in the qualifiers, and I think it's going to be a relatively low number. Again, the games might be a little bit closer though than expected, and there's going to be more games. So 5 to 6 is probably not a bad choice either. How many? Also you have to take into account that 0 to 2 is a larger window than 3 to 4 and 5 to 6 is actually 3 numbers. 0, 1, 2, 3 to 4 is only 2 numbers. 5 to 6 is only 2 numbers too. So the interval size is larger for 0 to 2, which makes that somewhat of a stronger argument. How many couriers will be killed? This one is all about Nature's Prophet. People actually tend to ban out Nature's Prophet a lot versus Alliance, and while IF doesn't play it as much anymore, there are other prominent Nature's Prophet players, but again, I'm talking about like the really good teams too. Isis Ice plays it a decent amount too. So looking at those, the data for everything suggests 31 to 40. So I'm not going to argue with the numbers. 31 to 40 seems pretty safe. Other predictions: highest total kills in a single game, 81-90. Pretty clear winner in that given the data. How many allies would be denied? This depends on a lot of things. Bloodstone counts as a deny, and heroes that actually do damage over time that is deniable also lead this factor to be really high. I think Doom will actually be banned a lot. So yes, he might be picked a lot too. Venomancer, not terribly popular. Bloodstone heroes, not terribly popular either, like Death Prophet, Timbersaw. Heroes that can actually deny themselves, like Pudge and Abaddon, probably not going to be picked up too often too. So I'm actually going to err on the lower side too. That Dota Knoxville said 16 to 18. Nahaz said 19 to 21. I want to take the interval lower at 13 to 15. Largest difference in team gold in a single game. The data suggests 35,000 to 40,000 or 40,000 to 45,000. I think the games are going to be pretty close, but all you need is one game to bump it up there. just going to say 35,000, 40,000. It's 50-50 in between that and the next interval. How many 30+ minute games with no Roshan kills? Everyone says 0 to 10. Can't think of a good reason why not. Most career kills in a single game. This one's tough. 2 to 3 seems to be pretty reasonable. Again, this is going to be probably online and not like with a crowd cheering behind them, so that somewhat influences it. Nature's Prophet picks and Enchantress picks also somewhat influence it. I'd say it's probably more likely that it's going to be 2 than 3, but my gut says 3 for some reason. 2 is probably the more logical choice though. First 4 places and the equal 5th place. This is the last one that you need to make. The consensus is that DK and IG are top 2, and that is evident by almost every single large LAN event prior to TI4. And almost everyone say that DK is the strongest team. So DK, IG, the only one that requires some thought, I think I'd say, is 3rd or 4th. EG versus Newbie. Newbies looked really good, but they haven't actually played too many Western teams. And they're a little bit more inexperienced compared to DK and IG, but they have a lot of skill. I think that EG is going to edge out Newbie. A lot of the other places, I think 2P said Newbie will beat IG, or Newbie will beat EG, and Newbie will be 3rd, EG will be 4th, but DK, IG, EG, Newbie is actually pretty safe for 5th and 6th. I say Alliance just because they've looked pretty good recently, and I think that they'll probably step up their game for TI, similar to how Navi steps up their game for TI. And I know that these teams have a lot of individual skill. I think 2P also put Alliance in the 5th/6th, but they also put Empire too. I view Navi as a better team than Empire. They might not have had the results, but overall I think they're a stronger team and they're quicker to adapt in a setting like this. And of course, you know, if you really like a team, you can put on here too, but you're probably not going to go very far with winning rares and whatnot. Stats wise, 2P thinks Empire, Vici, Mouse, Alliance are all fairly honorable mentions in that aspect. I don't actually think Vici will make it top 6. They're not that flexible. Mouse Sports is actually a pretty good bet too. That team is surprisingly strong, almost taking down IG at ESL, and they're pretty big underdogs, but they shouldn't be as big underdogs as they actually are. I don't actually like Empire that much. I think that Mouse Force is a little bit stronger than Empire, but statistics show that Empire is a stronger team than Mouse, and Mouse Force did almost even not qualify directly because they almost lost to VP. So I would say like Alliance and then like Empire or Mouse, Vici, one of those, or Navi, as I'm going to put here. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. If you like my videos, you can follow me at youtube.com/Merlini Dota. You can subscribe, and also Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, all the same /Merlini Dota. Again, if you want other opinions, I will post the links in the YouTube description. Thank you guys for watching, and good luck.